What's good, everybody? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 p.m. today. Can I get an amen? Fantastic to have you guys with us on this Friday Eve edition of the show. Could not do it without you. We so greatly appreciate you making us part of your day. Here's how you guys can take part in what we've got cooking. You can give us a ring at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-FANFONE. That's 844-326-3663. The text line is there for you on the show today at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go on the show. You can get to us on Facebook and on Twitter at the Fan Upstate, at Diesel on Radio, at Mark Ryan on Air. That's at MARC Ryan on Air. And what is good, YouTube? You guys can check us out on the YouTube page. You can do so at the Fan Upstate on YouTube is where you can check us out. Coming up on the show today, overrated and underrated in the upstate. What do we think about that? Why hasn't quarterback drafting gotten more accurate over the years? Make it make sense why that hasn't come to pass. Make it make sense to me. We've got the top 5 at 5. We've got the Upstate's favorite athlete bracket. We've got Truth Serum, and we have you here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere. Anywhere you can go, anywhere you can find us, that is where we are, my friends. Okay, I wanted to get started. I wanted to get this party started today with this. The SEC released their schedules for 2022. All right, for 2022, the SEC released their schedules. And folks, the reality of the situation is I've got a sneaking suspicion that quite a few folks in the SEC circles are going to regret having done just this. I think there is going to be a little bit of a buyer's remorse on Oklahoma or Texas. Well, Mark Ryan, how can you say that? Do you realize that each school in the SEC is getting $18 million more a year because Oklahoma and Texas are now playing in the nation's best conference? I do. But I believe, folks, that this conference, this league has become so dominant now and so great that you're going to have very, very good coaches losing their jobs. You're going to have very, very good programs not making the college football playoff for literally decades on end. And it's setting the stage for, like, the SEC to break off into their own entity, for the SEC championship to be their national championship. We are losing geographical relevance in a lot of these conferences now. USC, UCLA going to the Big Ten. And I wonder, like, as we sit and marvel at the behemoth that the SEC is, if there is going to be a longing for the days of yesterday. It's not only us, it's not only the SEC stalwarts, it's not only the old school SEC schools that are realizing this. On OU Insider, Sooner Chris wrote the following: is this really what we want? How is this great? Just more losses per season and fewer conference championships. Is this what we want? Looks terrible to me, but the TV networks have bamboozled so many into thinking the TV interest is also your interest. It's not. Every single one of these schools has subscribed to the bigger is better notion, Diesel. And more is not always more. Sometimes less is more. And I think, if Florida looks up and hasn't made the playoff in 30 years, There's going to be a big feeling of regret that we decided to be greedy and just hoard everything to ourselves.
Look, for programs to be dominant, they're going to need teams to beat, and there are going to be a lot of fan bases of a lot of proud programs who are used to winning 8, 9, 10, 11 games a season, who are now going to be winning 6, 7, 8, 9 games a season, and they're not going to like what they see. These are fan bases that like winning. And when you've got fan bases that are used to winning and all of a sudden they're losing, that's when you get disgruntled fans. That's when you get attendance drop. And you're going to have universities firing quality coaches who just can't win the most brutal conference ever devised. And they're going to be going to other conferences. You know, SEC castoffs. What if the day comes that the University of South Carolina says, sorry, Shane, finishing 4th place isn't good enough. We got to move on from you. And then an ACC school picks up Shane Beamer. And think how good Shane Beamer could be if he was actually in a conference where he could go out and shine and dominate and win on a big scale. Billy Napier, fine quality coach. University of Florida can move on from him. Say, man, what you're doing isn't good enough for us. And he's going to take a Big 12 job, or he's going to take a Pac-12 job or an ACC job. It could happen.
Diesel, there's a lot of jumping off points here. I'll piggyback with a conversation I'm having right now on Twitter with a guy by the name of Orange Tiger 1995. Agree or disagree, we appreciate all of our followers. And I said yesterday, Diesel, and you sent me a tweet today, Diesel, that I think was basically in agreement with what I said. The Florida schedule that was released for 2024 is going to go down as the most brutal schedule in the history of college football. They play 11 out of 12 games, 11 are Power 5 opponents. They have Miami, who's going to be a top 15 team. Florida State is going to be a top 15 team. UCF in year 2 of the Big 12. They've got Kentucky, LSU, Ole Miss, A&M, Georgia, Tennessee, and Texas on the same freaking schedule.
In baseball, they call it a murderer's row.
Everybody thinks this is a great idea. And I said, this is the hardest schedule in the history of college football. They're treating us like we're Jason Bourne. Remember that movie, The Bourne Identity? And they're determined to kill us. And they're going to be successful. And Orange Tiger says, he's a Clemson fan. He goes, not really, Mark Ryan. About 4 of those teams on the schedule will go 8-4 or better. The rest will be 7-5 or much worse. And I said back to him, I said, well, we learned last year that a 7-4 SEC team, South Carolina, was better than a 10-1 ACC team, Clemson. And he says, if you're referring that South Carolina beat Clemson, you're obviously correct. What does this have to do with your post about the most brutal schedule in the history of college football? Here's the controversy, Diesel, and here's what I mean by this. I think you're about to enter the land of major controversy where everybody knows that an 8-4 SEC team in that schedule is every bit as good as a 10-2 Notre Dame, given Notre Dame's schedule. Everyone's going to know that. It's going to be obvious. The SEC's become like NFL light with this schedule. So what is the committee going to do? You know, if South Carolina is 9-3, do they get the nod over 10-2 Oregon out of the Pac-12? If Florida's 8-4, do they get the nod over 10-2 Wisconsin out of the Big Ten? Because the difference in schedule strength is going to be freaking massive and freaking pronounced. Folks, I mean, this Florida schedule, this is why they voted down non-conference games. And they voted it down, Diesel, because they don't want to be irrelevant for the next 3 or 4 years. They've made all these commitments to play these games, and now you want to add another 9th game? Furthermore, Diesel, you heard me say yesterday on the show, I was looking forward to LSU not being on Florida's schedule anymore. They are. They're still there. They're still there. And that brings me into my next point, my friends, the next point that I want to share with you here on the show. You may not realize it. You probably don't realize it. But South Carolina was significantly disrespected in this SEC scheduling model. Why, Mark Ryan? Because in so doing, in placing this schedule, they did not respect a single South Carolina rivalry that exists. They said every other rivalry game is bigger. There is no Georgia, There is no Florida. There is no Tennessee on South Carolina's schedule. Why? Well, Georgia's got to play Auburn. That's bigger. Florida's got to play Georgia and Tennessee. That's bigger. Tennessee's got to play Alabama. That's bigger. You guys got the shaft in this series. You have essentially joined the SEC West Division. The schedule for South Carolina features these SEC teams: LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama, Ole Miss, Texas A&M. They might as well be an SEC team. Diesel, they decided that South Carolina's rivalry games were not as big. They prioritized Florida LSU, which is not a rivalry, over all of South Carolina's historical rivalries.
Well, look, I've only been saying this for 2 years since they started mentioning going to a divisionless model or going to pods or tweaking the schedule, getting away from the East-West divisions. I've been saying this. Is it really worth playing Mississippi State more to lose out on playing Tennessee, or to lose out on playing Georgia, or to lose out on playing Florida? Because they're not adding any games. You can't add a West team. You have to you can only take away from your East opponents to add Western opponents. So you're like, oh, that's great. We'll get to see Texas and Mississippi State and Ole Miss and LSU more often. But that also means you're going to see Kentucky, Tennessee, Florida, Georgia less. Is that what you really wanted? And I've been saying it like till I'm blue in the face. And everyone's like, yeah, that's what we want. We want to face those West teams more often. Well, now you're going to be looking around saying, well, damn, they don't have our East Coast brethren to kick around. This isn't as fun as it used to be.
It isn't. We see Randall and Greer trying to text in. Randall, if you could do me a solid and start your text with the word fan and attach your text to that message, I think we'll be able to see your message on our screen, but we can see that you are trying to text in. Texter says, has sports media and you talkers forgotten we still have a whole 2023 season to play? And Mark introduced the segment as the 2022 schedule. So I misspoke there. It's the 2024 schedule, Texter. No, we haven't forgotten that, Texter. But we're getting a picture, we're getting a vision of what college football is going to look like. And we have concerns. It's the number one sport in this area. It's the number one sport to me. And Diesel, I can already pick up that there's going to be a hell of a lot of friction between myself, a Gator grad, and Clemson fans. Between even more friction between Clemson fans and South Carolina fans, if you can imagine it. More friction between the SEC schools and other conferences. And you know what I would say if I was a fan of another conference school? We didn't make you add Oklahoma and Texas. We didn't do that. We're sitting here 11-1. You're 9-3. Why should you go to the playoff over us? Because you were playing Cal and Oregon State, and we were playing Oklahoma and LSU. That's why.
Well, I have a fear as we expand this playoff to 12, and the model that we all believe is going to happen, it'll be the 6 highest ranked conference champions and 6 at-larges. I have a fear that, justified or unjustified, and it's probably going to be justified, I'm not obtuse here, that the SEC's reputation of being so damn difficult that having 4 losses still gets you into the playoff, that it'll be the SEC's 2 through 7 that take the 7 through 12 spots in the playoffs. Like, I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of variety in the at-larges. I think it's going to be a lot of SEC. You know, you have to have one from the top 6 conferences, one of those being an SEC team, and the rest, you know, it's going to have that reputation, that cachet around a 3, 4, 5 loss SEC team, that you're going to have more and more losses getting in. So by creating the schedule that you've created, by expanding the playoff the way that you have, you've fulfilled your own prophecy of 3, 4, 5 loss teams getting into a playoff. Is that what we really want? 4 loss teams getting into a playoff? Well, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You've made your league so damn good that 4-loss teams are considered better than 2-loss teams out of the Big Ten or out of the Pac-12 or the Big 12.
And I think, Diesel, what's going to end up happening is not what you just said. What do you guys think? I mean, do you guys think this evolves into a scenario where 4-loss SEC teams are getting in over 2-loss teams from other conferences? Because that's on the outside looking in, folks, that's the mark. You know, you either have to win your conference or you've got to go 10-2. That's the mark. So Diesel's fear is that 7 of the 12 are going to be SEC teams. I would argue that 7 of the best 12 are, in fact, SEC teams. But, Diesel, I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think the SEC is going to get the benefit of the doubt. If you're a 1-loss SEC team, you're going to be the highest-ranked 1-loss. If you have a 2-loss from the SEC, you'll be the highest-ranked. 3-loss SEC, you'll be the highest-ranked 3-loss team. But I think the SEC harmed itself in terms of playoff consideration with this. And just like you're going to see in the bowl games and the playoffs, you're going to see that the SEC is the best, but we don't know right now just how much leeway they're going to be given. But they made this bed. They did this to themselves. It didn't have to be this way, and here we are.
Well, it also makes me afraid that now we're going to expand the playoff to 16. Number one, because they're going to say, well, there's more money involved. 4 more games, 4 more shares of money. So, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. But you're also going to see these conferences bitching and moaning that the SEC is getting too much representation in the 12-team playoff. So they're going to say, well, we need to expand to 16 so that we can get more teams into the playoff. So now you've got 2 reasons to expand.
Look, one of the reasons, man, that I am on the fence about whether this playoff expansion is good for the sport is now, guys, it's just totally black and white. If you're from a storied program, if you're from a Florida, if you're from a Clemson, your season is either a success or failure by whether you made the playoff or not. And if you start out 3-3, why even watch the rest of the season? You know, like you are 3-3 on October 24th. Why watch the rest of the season? You're not going to the playoff. It's already been a bad year. You know what I mean? Like there were so many shades of gray before. Oh, we didn't win the SEC, but we made it to the SEC championship game and we made it to the Orange Bowl. We can feel good about that. Then the Orange Bowl, everyone tells me, became meaningless. So now it's a very clear black and white. Either you make the playoff or you've had a forgettable season. If you're Clemson, if you're Florida, if you're any storied program. And the SEC just knowingly did something that has made it increasingly more difficult, if not impossible, to do just that. Now, I'll admit to you guys that Florida's been in a little bit of a down spell, right? Will Muschamp was a failed hire. Jim McElwain was a failed hire. Dan Mullen was not recruiting, had some successes. I don't want to call him a failure, but they replaced him. You know, if you go back to the Steve Spurrier years or Urban Meyer, or let's say that Billy Napier is just a little bit below Spurrier and Meyer. In a regular year, what's the record going to be hosting LSU, A&M, Ole Miss, and Kentucky at home? Maybe 3-1, right? What's the record going to be Georgia in Jacksonville, at Mississippi State, at Tennessee, and at Texas? Maybe 2-2 on the road. So if Billy Napier is a very good SEC coach, you're now a 5-3 SEC team. You're now a team that is not going to the college football playoff. And the SEC did this to themselves.
Have you ever heard that saying, being a victim of your own success?
Yeah.
That's what the SEC is becoming. Victim of their own greed and victim of their own success.
Why did they do this? Why did they make this decision? They didn't use my suggestion of ping pong ball selection committee. They didn't do that. And now you have a collection of the most difficult schedules in the history of the sport. 71307 on the text line. 71307 on the text line is where you guys can get to us. We will keep the discussion right here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere. Oh, give me the flag.
I got to throw a flag on you when we come back. Actually, you know what? I will do it right now.
I deserve it.
Penalty. He wasn't playing the ball.
Silence your cell phones. Put your tray tables in their upright and locked position. Keep your hands and feet inside the ride at all times. Shame on you, Mark.
Yeah, I can even tell you why that happened, Diesel. I was waiting to hear back from Archie Manning's assistant as to his availability. I like to have Archie Manning on because he's the first father of sports, and it's a Father's Day weekend. And I just heard back from her that he's traveling this weekend and he can't do it. I had him on last year, and so I didn't want to miss her call. I just got her call, but then you just got that call. So sorry about that, guys. All right, my friends, we're going to keep it right here. Is this going to be a move that the SEC comes to regret? That's next. This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. What's good, everybody? It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Look, there's a lot of these guys that are, like either you work for ESPN or you work for the SEC network, and it's your job to hype up the positives of this, right? I was looking at Peter Burns yesterday, and he works for the SEC network. So you might imagine that it's just all positive. He said a few thoughts on the SEC schedule 2024. Holy hell, it's going to be awesome adding OU and Texas. We love how many rivals and secondary rivals were kept. As balanced top to bottom as I've ever seen an SEC schedule. Love keeping LSU against Florida. Texas at A&M fires me up. Going to take me a little while not to think of divisions. With the amount of big non-conference opponents already on the schedule for 2024, the decision to stay at 8 conference games for another year makes more sense. God bless trying to figure out tiebreakers. The buzz for 2024 will be massive. Yeah, the buzz is going to be massive. But what happens on November 3rd when Texas and Texas A&M is a battle of 3 and 4 teams? Their record is 3 wins and 4 losses. And it's not going to be because they're not really good. It's going to be because, they're essentially NFL teams playing all of the other very best teams in college football year after year after year. Now, you might be saying to me, well, Mark Ryan, this sounds like a bunch of excuses. And in life, folks, my belief is there are reasons and there are excuses. Okay? Reasons and excuses. If you are just playing flat better teams than anyone else is playing, there is a reason. That is a reason why you don't have the same win-loss record. You've heard Gamecock fans lament for years that, man, if we played in the ACC, you've heard Diesel recommend that South Carolina join the ACC. And you got proof last year that a 7-4 SEC team, South Carolina, was better than a 10-1 ACC team. Clemson. That's not a shot. That's not hating. That is factually correct. It's not going to be great to me, Peter Burns, adding Oklahoma and Texas. I don't love how many rivals and secondary rivals were kept. South Carolina kept no rivals. It's as balanced as top to bottom as he's ever seen an SEC schedule. I think you misspelled brutal, Peter. You love keeping LSU Florida. I don't. It's not a rivalry. You know what I mean? So I don't get it.
We're just not that into them.
I just don't get it. 71307 on the text line is where you can get to us on the show. And let's get right to it. And Rich in Chicago leads us off. Hey, Rich.
Hey, Mark. Hey, look, I don't want to belabor the SEC, but I don't want to do that on the national show either. So I thought I'd give you some intel. Since I'm a real data geek and so are you, stats don't lie. I couldn't agree more with you. It's not excuses. I think what they've done in 2024 is a disaster. And I sent you an email giving you our analytics, the guys I know up here, about what we forecast a year out. You can check that out on your email. I gave that to you 2 hours ago. So the subject is appropriate. But what I wanted to talk about quickly for you is the coming season. And as you know, I think Phil Steele is the best handicapper and analyst in the country. He's just released his top 15 toughest schedules for 2023. Take a wild guess who's got the toughest schedule out of all D1.
Florida.
South Carolina.
Well, according to Kelly Ford of K Ford Ratings, Florida's got the toughest schedule to get to 6 wins. South Carolina's number 2 to get to 6 wins. So I'd have to ask Phil, what metrics are you using to determine toughest schedule? Is it an opinion? Because
I can tell you.
Yeah, because
I'll give you the methodology because I asked that question. I actually know the guy. He uses win percentage of the teams that you're playing in the current year from the previous year, which teams turn over. But just so you know, Florida's tied for 6th for 2023. And the point I want to make and you can tell this to all your ACC fans, of the top 15 toughest schedules, 6 of the 15 are SEC schools.
Yeah, it's not surprising, and it's just going to get worse. It's just going to get worse. I don't know why they had to make everyone play Oklahoma and Texas in year one. I don't know why they had to say goodbye to all these rivalries. And in the case of your school, Rich, and my school, they said, no, Florida. No, what makes you think that you deserve to have Vanderbilt on the schedule? No. Your schedule is easy enough. After all, you have LSU, A&M, Ole Miss, Georgia, Tennessee, and Texas on it. No, you guys don't deserve to get Vanderbilt. That's what they said to our school. It's insane.
But to your point about Napier, when you look at the 6 toughest this year and ridiculous in 2024, he may not survive the next 2 years.
Well, and that would be unfortunate because I have Rich, I see no way possible that Florida achieves anything of real significance to its fan base over the next 2 seasons. No way.
I don't see it either.
This year is a transition year where you're stuck with a roster that has a lot of holes in it. Next year is the brutal schedule year where you're going to be starting potentially a freshman quarterback, DJ Lagway. So I think, if Florida is committed to Napier for the long term, if they believe that, that's the answer. But you're going to have to convince many deep-pocketed boosters that you got to stay the course with Napier over the long haul. 2025 is the first time that anything of significance can be achieved. And so I would just say to Gator fans like you, Rich, and me, buckle in, enjoy the journey, because it's going to be a while. Grab a Snickers.
I'll leave you on one thing that I think will be a silver lining. I'm not convinced, and I don't think you are either, that Texas and Oklahoma are going to be more difficult than the Kentuckys and Auburns and LSU's. I don't believe that. So as much as they think, hey, they're going to power this thing up, hey, welcome to the SEC. And I'm not convinced they'll dominate anything. I think they'll both be 500 teams.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of really good teams in the SEC that are 500 teams. And people are not going to immediately realize just how much the landscape has changed. When you get these non-conference games at the beginning of the year and the SEC wipes the floor with everybody, and then that same team is 3-4 at the end of October, people are going to be like, oh, I guess they weren't. No. It's that the SEC is just that good. But what's going to happen with the playoff? We're going to find out. Rich, I'll talk to you Saturday on the national show, my man. Thank you so much for ringing us up. We do appreciate it more than we could ever put into words for you. All right. Coming up next on the show, any questions you guys have about the schedule release? What do you think? What do you have? What are you looking at? But coming up next on the show, why is it specifically that drafting quarterbacks hasn't gotten better? That's next here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 p.m. today. Genuinely appreciate you guys making time for us on this Friday Eve edition of the show. Texter says, Mark, your Gators got hosed on the 2024 schedule. I don't understand a lot of the scheduling, but it'll be a 9-game schedule after 2024. So says Spur Daddy. Yeah, does that make it better, Spur Daddy? I'm not so sure.
It's going to make it harder, Spur Daddy.
You know, the wisest thing you could do right now is something I've been critical of. Scheduling pansy after Twinkie after cupcake in the non-conference schedule. That's the smartest thing you could do right now. Why even risk a loss in the non-conference schedule when the SEC is as strong as it is? Why do that?
Are we going to see the SEC MAC showdown now? I mean, only one FCS counts towards bowl eligibility. So it's not like you can schedule 3 FCS schools. You're going to have to now you have to schedule lower in group of 5 to try to get to bowl eligibility. Man, Akron's going to get absolutely abused by this. Toledo is going to have a rough schedule going forward. They're going to make a lot of money. They're going to make a lot of money playing USCC boys. But, man, they're going to get absolutely bloodied.
I am of the belief that no Power 5 team should ever be playing an FCS school. I'm of the belief that no FBS school should be playing an FCS school. And sometimes they lose. You know, what was it last year that Arizona played North Dakota State, the great FCS powerhouse, and the line on that game was a point. And I watched that game, and it went down to the bloody wire. And you kind of had like an average to below average FBS team against the very best of the FCS, and it was a coin flip, man.
Yeah.
It's a total coin flip.
And I say that says a lot more about the Arizonas of the world. Again, because you're getting 20, 30, 40, $50 million a year more in resources, and you're struggling to beat FCS. I don't care how good the FCS team is. You've got a $30 million a year advantage over them, and you can't beat them? The hell's wrong with you?
Florida schedule, man. 2024. Miami, UCF, Florida State, Kentucky, LSU, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Georgia, Tennessee, Texas, Mississippi State. And then they throw in Samford as like a joke for a joke. And Samford was a top 10 FCS school last year. How do we know that Samford couldn't give Florida a game right now? Right? They throw him in there for giggles, but how do you know you couldn't give him a game? So here's what I did, folks. I put together, I said, okay, of the 16 SEC schools, how many of these would I label an A or a B opponent? Okay. And I came out with 12. 12 of the 16 teams in the SEC are A or B opponents, which means there's only 4 that are not. The 4 SEC teams that I do not consider to be A or B level opponents right now are Auburn. In year 1 under Hugh Freeze, we don't know what they're going to be. Mississippi State without Mike Leach, Vanderbilt, and Missouri. Every other school in the SEC right now, I think, is an A or a B. South Carolina, Arkansas are Bs. Florida is a B, right? Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, those are A's. Oklahoma and Texas, I don't care what anyone says. Right now, they're Bs based on how they've played. So I went through and I looked at this out of 8 opponents that you have in the SEC for every single school. How many A or B opponents did these schools get? Texas A&M got 5 out of 8. Missouri got 5. Arkansas got 5. And Alabama got 5. Give me a break. Alabama got off easy with this SEC schedule. Alabama gets Auburn at home with a new coach, Georgia at home with a new coach, South Carolina at home. They get Vanderbilt on the road. Give me a break. Alabama got off easy, Diesel.
Split decision here on the YouTube comments early on. We posted the podcast already about South Carolina getting disrespected by the 2024 schedulers. David Bell says they should have at least kept the Georgia game. Look at all the other matchups they kept. Total BS. He's upset about it. But William Putt says, this is a long one. He says, speak for yourselves. We finally get some different matchups for a change. Finally, the home game versus LSU we were robbed of a few years ago. First time ever playing Oklahoma, Ole Miss, who we rarely see, and going to Bama for the first time in forever. It's good to change it up, and it's not like we will never see Florida, Tennessee, and Georgia again. The teams will rotate more frequently, and for some reason, people can't seem to comprehend that. William, have you ever heard of the story of Nero playing his fiddle as Rome burned? Like, it's not a literal story. It's a parable. It's not a literal event that happened. But this is what you're doing, man. You're just dancing a jig while the whole thing burns, while your traditional rivalries go away, and you're loving every minute of it.
And William, I've been the first to say that being in the minority doesn't mean you're wrong, but when you're running a business and when a majority of your customers are unhappy, you're costing yourself significant business. And if you talk to the vast majority of Gamecock fans, hey, how do you feel about not playing Georgia, Tennessee, or Florida in 2023? And it's all because those three schools had other games that were deemed bigger and more important and better rivalries than yours. How does that feel that you guys were the ones that were dropped?
How many away tickets is South Carolina selling for SEC East games? And I'm just making it 5,000. I wouldn't think it's 10,000. I wouldn't think it's that high, but let's just say for the sake of argument that it's 5,000. It's easy for 5,000 Tennessee fans to drive down to Columbia. It's easy for 5,000 Florida fans and Georgia fans and Vanderbilt fans to drive in to Columbia. It's going to be really hard for 5,000 Texas fans to fly to Columbia, or A&M fans. Well, A&M, they're nuts. They'll travel anywhere. But Oklahoma fans, Ole Miss fans, LSU fans, you're going to start to see some attendance drop from away fans who are used to buying tickets every other year to come to your stadium. You're going to start losing visiting fans in your stadium. Your attendance is going to start to drop. I think fans are going to, you're getting exciting opponents that you don't see very often, like LSU, Texas, Oklahoma, Alabama, but you're also getting the Mississippi States that you're probably not that stoked on. The Ole Misses that you're not really all that stoked on. You're going to have to host them too. And you're going to see attendance dropping for the opponents the new opponents that your fans really don't care that much about.
So here we go, folks. Games against A or B level opponents in the SEC schedule in 8 games. All right. On the low end, A&M, Missouri, Arkansas, and Alabama all have 5 A or B level opponents. All right. Vanderbilt, Texas, Kentucky, Tennessee, South Carolina, Oklahoma, Georgia, and Auburn have 6, which is where you want to be. You don't want the hardest schedule. You don't want the weakest schedule. You don't want anybody to be able to say anything about your schedule. Then Mississippi State, Ole Miss, LSU, and Florida, 7 of their 8 opponents in the SEC are A or B level opponents. And so, they said, well, we're going to get together in a room and we're going to come up with even Steven schedules. And they failed. They failed miserably. All right. LSU has their one cupcake game as Vanderbilt. They get Alabama, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, A&M, Arkansas, Florida, and South Carolina. That's not as bad as the schedule Florida got. Ole Miss, their one non-B game was Mississippi State. Then they get Georgia, Kentucky, Oklahoma, at LSU, at Arkansas, at Florida, at South Carolina. I'm telling you guys, it's hard for me to wrap my head around how this makes sense. It's hard for me to wrap my head around how this makes things better. Unless what you want to do is have the SEC break off into its own thing, and then 8 of your 16 teams make the SEC playoffs. Okay, you only got to be top 8 to make the playoffs, because the reason why 9-8 or 10-7 works in the NFL is because you can make the playoffs at 9-8 or 10-7. But in today's day and age, when you're 7-5, your fans have nothing to play for. We don't care about the Music City Bowl. We don't care about that. Going to advise all of our best players not to play. Don't play in the Music City Bowl. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of space. That's what we've done to the sports. So you've just created a scenario where you've made the SEC an exercise in impossibility. All right? You've made it impossible. And then you've said to your coaches, go 10-2 or you're going to be fired. Go 10-2 or you're going to be SOL. Diesel said to me earlier today, I said, he said, Mark, how do you feel about this schedule? I said, I am not well. And Diesel said, I'm so sorry for your losses, your future losses, because there's going to be a lot of them. And we're going to have a playoff system where you got to be almost perfect to win. You know, I'll tell you what, this, Diesel, my biggest beef with Will Muschamp was he played a style that left you in a lot of close games. He played this conservative, grinded out style. And I'm like, why would you play a style that's designed to be in a bunch of close games when you can't afford to lose a single one? Why would you have a scheduling model that guarantees you're going to have multiple losses when you can't have multiple losses and play in the SEC championship game? Then you think about the wear and tear, the cumulative effect, et cetera, et cetera. I just have this feeling, guys, that there's going to be some serious buyer's remorse.
Mark, I'm going to give you two suggestions. One you already know about. Number one, that is to move to the ACC if you're Florida. Number two, change your school colors to black and blue because y'all are about to get beat up pretty hard in this conference. And it's not going to be fun. It's not going to be fun.
Texter says, and Diesel's right. Like we're about to become black and blue U. Texter says, the Gators last played Samford in 2021. I remember that game, almost lost. We won, but it was 70-52. The Gamecocks non-conference in 2024 is easier than Clemson. They got Old Dominion, Akron, and Wofford. It's smart. It's honestly smart when you consider the gauntlet that is. Spur Daddy says, Mark, I agree. 9 games is going to be brutal. I was just saying that's what it's going to be after 2024. Texter says, give me a couple years, Diesel, and I think I'll be all over that going to the ACC thing for the Gamecocks. Texter says, Arkansas, South Carolina, Tennessee, Ole Miss, and Florida you gave a B to. They are a doo-doo sandwich. Man, I wish I had your grading system when I was in school. Tennessee's a doo-doo sandwich. Florida's top 10 recruiting class is a doo-doo sandwich. Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin is a doo-doo sandwich. I mean, maybe. You could argue that you're being very difficult, Texter. I think Auburn's in transition. Missouri's mediocre. Mississippi State is going to return to mediocrity, and Vanderbilt stinks, although they're not as bad as they've been. Texter says, you're right about Beamer leaving and going to the ACC. He'll be a Virginia Tech rocking Enter Sandman. Texter wants to know what happens to the SEC championship game. They're going to take the 2 best teams. 2 best teams, no more divisions in 2024. That's what they're going to do. All right, my friends. Why hasn't this inexact science improved over the years? I'm going to need your help on this segment, and I'll explain that to you next. Here on Offsides, we are the Fan Upstate. All right, Diesel, I just got Jake Crane for 520.
Shots on stage. Some of the scenes from the Nuggets championship parade in Denver celebrating their first ever NBA title. Meanwhile, Ricky Fowler is carving up Los Angeles Country Club round 1 of the U.S. Open. He's pushed it to 7 under par for 15 holes. Xander Schauffele not far behind at -5. Scotty Scheffler in the mix at 3 under par. And you've got Bryson DeChambeau and Max Homa both inside the top 10 currently as well. The Wall Street Journal reports the U.S. Department of Justice has opened a review of that planned alliance between the PGA Tour, the DP World Tour, and Saudi Arabia's public investment fund. NBA veteran forward Danilo Gallinari has reportedly exercised his $6.8 million option to return to the Celtics next season after nearing a full recovery from the torn ACL that caused him to miss this past season. He is set to make his Boston debut in the fall. Baseball-wise, you got the Rays and the A's getting set for their series finale in Oakland. In the meantime, final steps for relocation of the A's to Las Vegas, a signature from Nevada's governor, and MLB's approval, both of which are expected. On the scoreboard, you do have one game in progress, bottom half of the eighth. It's the Orioles at home leading the Blue Jays by a score of 3-2. I'm Crystal Presti.
Looking for CBS Sports Radio online? Your favorite hosts and the best sports content and entertainment are available 24/7 on social media and YouTube, and in the palm of your hand with the free Odyssey app.
CBS Sports Radio. 1,000 shows. Okay. That's 4,000 hours. Chip on his shoulder. 240,000 minutes. Temperamental attitude. Over 14 million seconds of Mark Ryan popping off at people for that. We're sorry.
Wait, what?
You're invited to the 1,000th show of Offsides with Mark Ryan, Wednesday, June 21st, 3 to 7 at Ingles Market, 8004 Warren H. Abernathy Highway, Spartanburg.
Offsiders, join us and thank you.
The Fan, Upstate.
I always wanted to learn Spanish, but I never thought I'd have the time. Then I discovered Babbel.
Babbel's lessons are fun. They only take like 10 or 15 minutes, and in 3 weeks, presto, you're starting to speak another language. Like magic.
I love that Babbel's lessons aren't just robots talking. They're voiced by native speakers, so you get the pronunciation just right. And they're designed by real language teachers, so you learn how to have real-world conversations, things you'll actually use.
It's incredible. For using Babbel, I'm ready to start having real conversations in French.
There's all kinds of ways to learn.
All right, Diesel. So we, Dave, Jim Rice won, thankfully, over DJ Swearinger. And today we're going to do Pistol Pete Maravich against Sidney Rice.
What time are we doing this?
Let me see here. Let's do.
Growing a business brings pressure. Staying compliant and maintaining top talent in challenging times.
420.
Stretch thin. Fortunately, there's Insperity. They put over 35 years of.
I'm going to push the overrated and underrated Diesel to tomorrow. What I'm looking for is 3 things that are underrated about the Upstate, 3 things that are overrated about the Upstate. Okay, we'll do that tomorrow.
Nothing seems impossible. Insperity, HR that makes a difference.
Gary David back with Travis Benson, owner of CNT Foundations. Travis, is there really a difference in foundation repair companies?
Absolutely, Gary. Choosing the wrong one can be costly. What sets us apart is that we're real, local general contractors offering homeowners lifetime solutions, and we value customer satisfaction over customer volume.
Call 864-581-3341. CNT Foundations.
What the heck? Not there yet.
Oh, okay.
You can turn your mic on. What the hell? I searched for Pete Maravich, and it's showing me photos of the LSU Iowa game. Pete Maravich, NBA.
Kids' shoes on, they're squirming, watching cartoons, anything but helping. Luckily, it's Skechers to the rescue. Introducing new hands-free Skechers slip-ins. Footwear you can just get your kids to step into and their shoes are on. You don't need to bend over. You don't need to sit on the floor and try to...
I will say I think we need to bring back the mustache into the NBA.
Okay.
Pistol Pete's mustache was for real.
Machine washable, so you can keep them looking newer longer. Get Skechers slip-ins, the "Where have you been all my life" shoes for your kids or for mom and dad today.
The Sidney Rice, S-I or S-Y? Yeah. And eventually, as athletes lose, I'm going to remove them from the from that Google Doc, just to like make it easier to find the players who are still active.
Oh, from the Google Doc.
Yeah, from the Google Doc.
What's good, everybody? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 p.m. today. Love you, truly do appreciate you, whether you agree or disagree. The Denver Nuggets are having their championship parade right now. You got shirtless NBA players. I don't know why Diesel's drooling. No, I'm just kidding.
Good thing I can't see it. I have to stare at your ugly mug twice. I've got you, and then I've got you over your shoulder.
Let's see here. Texter says, Mark, joining the ACC will not help the Salamanders. See, that's what he does with the name Gators. You better try CUSA. And for the record, you are the doo-doo in the doo-doo sandwich. Florida hasn't been great, Texter. That really, they haven't been great. Even in Dan Mullen's height, even when they came within a score of knocking off Alabama, there hasn't been a great season by Florida standards in, a dozen years. That's right. That's fair. And you got to take the abuse when you've had down years. I mean, that's fair. That's honest, right? It's right. And, where I differ with you guys is that I am a Florida fan, and I did not want Oklahoma and Texas in the SEC. And so it's just like, well, Mark, you made this bed. No, I didn't make this bed. This is not what I wanted. I'm a fan with a voice and a sports media job. It's not what I wanted. I don't agree with Greg Sankey's decision to do this. Well, if we wouldn't have gotten them, somebody else would have gotten Oklahoma and Texas. They're huge brands. Great. Let all their best teams go 8-4. All right. The SEC was already difficult enough. And so what you're going to see eventually is you're going to see an ultimatum. You're going to see or else. You're going to have a lot of great SEC teams that are left out of the playoff, and then the playoff's going to go to 16. And then it's going to go to 24, right? And then it's just going to keep growing and growing and growing to the point where the single thing that made college football the greatest, the regular season, has now lost all of its meaning. And that is deeply concerning. That would be deeply disappointing if that were to come to pass. 71307 on the text line is where you guys can get to us. I want to ask you guys this question. Before
you do that, I want to shout out to a couple of new people that we haven't seen before on our YouTube stream, Zach Anderson and Adam Dameron. Thank you for jumping in. Dan B, Spur Daddy, Madcraft, all you guys are in there mixing it up as per usual, and we appreciate that. But Zach and Adam, a couple of new faces. Right on, guys.
No doubt about that. We appreciate you guys greatly. Diesel, look, I always say I'm always learning new things about our market. This year I learned that, college baseball really is a big deal here. A couple days ago, I learned that Tennessee is the team that Gamecock fans hate the second most. They just largely hate the color orange. Clemson and Tennessee. I never knew that before. Help me help you by giving me this piece of information. Is the College World Series, now that no local teams are in it, is that still a topic here on Upstate Airwaves? I mean, do you guys want analysis on the College Baseball World Series with no local vibe and no local team? I'm looking at this Oral Roberts against TCU, and I'm having this realization, Diesel, that you couldn't have a College World Series matchup that the Upstate would care less about than that one, right? Oral Roberts against TCU. What's your hunch, Diesel? I mean, you've got a role in the creation of this show. Is the College World Series still a topic with no South Carolina representation?
I think it loses a little bit of its luster. However, just because the South Carolina team isn't in it doesn't mean that it's not newsworthy, doesn't mean that it's not notable, that we shouldn't be following along with what's happening. That's how you grow the interest in it, and that's how you start to see the beauty in what's happening in the sport. Like, do you stop watching the the NCAA tournament when your team is out of it? No, because it's compelling even if your team is not in it.
Well, that's the point, though, Diesel. This isn't it. This isn't the March Madness. This isn't that national event that has everyone's interest, where everyone's following along in their bracket. This isn't that. Are you guys still into the College Baseball World Series? Are you still watching it? Are you still into it? I know you love it when your teams are good, right? But it's our job to find the pulse of what you guys are into. It's our job to find your passion points. In March Madness, when there's no South Carolina representation left, we still talk about it to a degree, but it's not the number one. I'm wondering if college baseball is still a topic at all in this area, in the College World Series, with no South Carolina representation included. What do you guys think? 71307 on the text line is where you can get to us. Texter says, I'd be okay with some College World Series talk on Offsides. We've got SEC schools still including your Gators. Yeah, man, look, I'll be watching. I'll be into it. I'll be watching. But look, the show's not about me. The show is entirely about you and what you guys are down with, what you guys are into, what you guys are invested in. So yeah, a ton of conversation about the schedule release from the SEC that came in, and back and forth conversation on that. I happen to just feel, folks, that there is going to be some pretty significant buyer's remorse that is at play here. Pretty significant buyer's remorse. I want to shift gears here to this, and I want to tackle the fact that it's unbelievable to me that we have not collectively gotten better at doing something. Okay, that we collectively have not gotten better at this. You know, I was watching Colin Cowherd a little bit today, and he was going into the fact that so many of these great quarterbacks were drafted later. They did not go first, second, third. So many of these quarterbacks were not drafted first, second, or third, and they achieved greatness. And I'm not going to do that topic, but it spawns something else within me. And I was just wondering why the NFL, why have we not gotten better at drafting quarterbacks over the years? Now, for this segment, I'm going to need your help on some things, okay? Because there are certain guys that are gray areas, and the first text that comes in is going to decide whether that player was a hit or a bust, okay? So, for those that I am struggling with, you guys tell me whether the player was a hit or a bust, okay? Now, my criteria usually is if you draft a quarterback in the first round, I expect him to be a solid starter for like 8 years, okay? Like a solid starter for 8 to 10 years. If he was, then you get a check for the pick. If he wasn't a solid starter for most of a decade, then I can't say like you would have made that pick again. So it's like, would this team have made the pick again? Did they at least get a solid starter out of it? 1983 draft, Ken O'Brien, hit or miss? What do you guys think? Hit or bust? So when you text the show, please put the name Ken O'Brien, and then please put hit or bust. The first text that comes in gives me the answer, okay? Jim Everett in 1986, hit or bust? Again, when you text in, please give me the name Jim Everett and then the word hit or bust next to it. All right? Jim Harbaugh, 1987, hit or bust? Jeff George, 1990, hit or bust? What do you think? Trent Dilfer, 1994, hit or bust? Kerry Collins, 1995, hit or bust? What do you guys think? Dante Culpepper, hit or bust? Let's see here. Alex Smith, hit or bust? Jay Cutler, hit or bust? Byron Leftwich. That's a tough one, right? Is Byron Leftwich a bust? Hit or bust? Was he a solid starter for 8 to 10 years? Probably not, right? Byron Leftwich. Let's see here. Mark Sanchez, hit or bust? What do you say? Sam Bradford, hit or bust? What do you say? And then finally, Ryan Tannehill, hit or bust? And one more for you, Jameis Winston, hit or bust? You see, there's quite a few that were close, and on the close ones, I tried to make it like 50-50. You know, I tried to make it where half of these guys I gave the okay to, and half I didn't, right? I tried to do it essentially like that, but here's what I came out with. All right, in the 1980s, 10 out of 20 first-round quarterbacks hit. John Elway hit, Jim Kelly hit, Dan Marino hit, Steve Young, I said Jim Everett did, Vinny Testaverde, I said Jim Harbaugh did, and Troy Aikman. The success rate was 50%. All right, 10 out of 20. In 1990, in the 1990s, the success rate of quarterbacks selected in the first round was 5 out of 18. The quarterbacks that I had hitting were Jeff George, Drew bled so much that he needed a transfusion, Steve McNair, Peyton Manning, and Donovan McNabb. Those are the quarterbacks I had hitting in the 90s. All right. All told, not great. And then in the 2000s, all right, you're looking at those quarterbacks that were taken in 2000. I had Chad Pennington hitting, Michael Vick, Drew Brees, Carson Palmer, Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers, Ben Roethlisberger. I said Alex Smith hit. I said Jay Cutler hit. I said Matt Stafford hit, Matt Ryan and Joe Flacco hit. I gave a plus to Sam Bradford. I don't know why. Cam Newton hits, Andrew Luck hits, Ryan Tannehill hits. I even gave a check to Teddy Bridgewater. I gave a check to Jared Goff, but not Carson Wentz. Checks, obviously, to Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson. A check to Josh Allen. A check to Daniel Jones. I must have been feeling really nice. And then checks to Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa, and Justin Herbert. But you see, folks, in the 90s, the experts in the NFL went 5 for 18. In the 2000s, the first decade of the 2000s, so 2000 to 2009, they were 12 for 26. And in the 2010s, they were 14 for 33. All told, since the 1980s, all quarterbacks selected in the first round, the hit rate, and I've graded easily, I think, today. The hit rate is 42%. Why are we getting worse at this? Not better. What is it among these quarterbacks that we're just not seeing? You know, like, what is it that we're just not seeing? Texter says, Mark, Alex Smith is definitely not a bust. Yeah, I don't think Alex Smith is a bust, Texter. But would the 49ers make that pick again? You know, like, was the pick a success, Alex Smith to the 49ers with a number 1 overall pick? I think you're kidding yourself if you say they make the same pick again. There's no way they make that pick again, right? But you're right. Okay. I said solid starter, 8 to 10 years. Alex Smith was that. So I gave him a check, even though he wasn't a great number 1 overall pick. What is your theory as to why exactly this is something that is not getting better? Why is it that the percentage of successful quarterback picks would be worse now than it was in the 1980s? Why is it that we have been totally unable to quantify or measure things like drive, and work ethic and leadership and temperament. Ryan Leaf was drafted number 2 on ability. Would not have been drafted at all based on temperament. Right? I was just considering this today, and I was like, this has not changed. In all of this time, so many different people have come up with so many different methodologies. Here's how you draft the quarterback. First, there was 26, 27, 60, which meant that if you got 26 or better on the Wonderlic, 27 starts in college football, 60% completions or better, that was a methodology that Bill Parcells liked. Then we had the Wonderlic. Now we have the S2 cognitive test. And we're supposed to believe that C.J. Stroud has no chance to be great, has no chance to be successful because he was the first guy. Like, no one's ever been great that failed that test. Why can't we get better at this, Diesel?
I have a very simple answer, and you're not going to like it because it's so simple. The answer is hype. The answer is hype. We hype quarterbacks so much every single year. You saw Anthony Richardson being talked about as a top 5 draft pick, for crying out loud. Pick, I should say. Like, why? Why do we let guys like Mel Kiper with his stupid hair convince us, and by us, I'm really talking about front office people in NBA or in NFL franchises. Why do they let Mel Kiper convince them that Anthony Richardson is a good idea? Every single year this happens, like you're screaming at your TV, like, come on, guys, you got to be smarter than this. You can't let these guys convince you, talk you into picking somebody who you know damn well is not a first-round draft pick. But they do it every single year because we place such a premium on the quarterback position that you have to have an elite quarterback if you want to win in the NFL. We have deprioritized the running back. How many times did teams make deep playoff runs in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s because they had elite running backs, but didn't necessarily have elite quarterbacks? Well, we've allowed the running back position to be devalued to the point where it doesn't really matter. So now you have to have an elite quarterback. You have to put that much extra pressure in running the offense on a quarterback. So you got teams now that feel like they have to reach for quarterbacks year in and year out. They buy into the hype. They make dumbass decisions and they get burnt by it every time.
Diesel, we've seen the studies that our IQ has dropped about 8 points.
Believe it.
And I'm wondering, this occurred to me, Diesel, yesterday because we were doing our passport application and it asked for my emergency contact's phone number. And that would be Angela, my wife.
Mm-hmm.
What is my wife's phone number? I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
I made myself memorize Ashley's phone number. It was hard.
I don't know because my brain doesn't have to do that anymore. And that's why we're getting dumber because we got so many of these foolproof plans that do everything for us, but it's a net negative in the end. Are you guys ever embarrassed at the amount of places that you need GPS to go to? Like if you've lived here more than 5 years and you're still using GPS to get from one place in Spartanburg to another place in Spartanburg, you should be ashamed of yourself.
Well, some people need GPS because the roads here are so damn bad and people are getting in accidents constantly that you need GPS to route you around the never-ending stream of BS on the roads.
Right. So, guys, I'm left wondering, why exactly this is the case. If technology's gotten better, I know we're not getting smarter, but if the methodology and the systems in place and the quarterback coaching, and if Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence were dominant as 8th graders, why isn't the drafting of quarterbacks becoming more accurate? 10 out of 20 hit in the 1980s. That was 50%. But since then, 28% hit in the 90s, 46% hit in the 2000s, and 42% hit in the 2010s. Why is this not something that's like 75, 80% success rate right now. Texter says, well, Mark, you've got dysfunctional teams drafting the top 10. We've always had dysfunctional teams drafting in the top 10.
That's why I think we need to completely overhaul the way we do this. We need the best team to not make the playoff to get the number one pick. Then you have something to strive for every year. If you're sitting in that middle of the pack of teams who know that they're not going to make the playoffs, you need to go out and win games because you need to improve your draft stock. I don't understand how people will say, well, it's not going to make the game any better. Trying to win is not going to make the game any better. The hell it won't.
Great to see all you guys in on the YouTube page. Thank you very, very much. I always like to watch radio shows on TV as well because you learn so much more about the inner workings of the show, right?
More new names popping up. Spartanburg Steady. Ayatollah of Rock and Rolla, you were in there yesterday. Thomas Cook, welcome, you guys. Welcome to the new names and faces. Make sure, if you are new to our YouTube stream, make sure that you click that subscribe button. And that way you can get a heads-up notification if you click the little bell. Roger Carper, another new guy that we haven't seen in here very often. Make sure that you are clicking subscribe and turning on the bell notification so that every day at 3 o'clock when we go live, you get that push sent right to your phone.
Ayatollah of Rock and Rolla on the all-name team. E. Thoughty chimes in. Good to hear from you, buddy. He says, Mark, I'm okay with College World Series talk as long as it's about LSU. Go Tigers. Geaux. All right. Here are the votes. Ken O'Brien is voted in the bus category. Let's see if you and I agreed. We did. Alex Smith is in the hit category. Did we agree? We did. Jim Everett in the hit category. Did we agree? We did. Mark Sanchez in the bust category. Did we agree? We did. Alex Smith, definitely not a bust. We agreed. Buckeye Brian says Tua Tagovailoa hasn't even started a full season yet. That's true, but I still think he's like in when he's playing, Buckeye Brian, when he's playing, he's kind of the Zion Williamson of the NFL, right? In terms of his availability. When he's playing, he's good, right? That's it. Texter says, Mark, maybe NFL scouts back in the 80s actually had a real eye for watching and evaluating quarterback prospects instead of just watching film and reading about them. Texter says the game has changed a lot since the 1980s. Offensive schemes have changed to where a successful QB is much more scrutinized. In the 80s, the offenses were not as much air raid, thus less potential to make big mistakes. Just an opinion. Texter, it's a good opinion. However, the interception rate is down significantly from the 80s. The schemes are more complex and quarterbacks are making fewer mistakes than they've ever made before, right? Because a turnover leads to you being benched. Consider the number of 4 interception games that we see, 3 and 4 interception games we see. That you used to get those every single week in the NFL back in the 80s and 90s. Texter says colleges only train QBs to their scheme, and NFL defenses may have gotten better. I do not have the numbers, but quarterback performance has improved. Quarterback rating has improved. Interceptions have gone down. Completion percentage have gone up. And still, we're not doing this very well. We're not drafting quarterbacks well at all. And I'm left befuddled betwixt and between as to why that is. All right, my friends. Coming up next on the show, it is time for your Upstate's favorite athlete bracket matchup of the day. And my friends, it is a doozy. That's next here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. Diesel and I were talking about this during the break, and it's awesome to see the YouTube page grow. It's awesome to see different people in there. It's awesome to see, a higher number of people watching live. Diesel was just saying to me during the break that, he's like, look, Mark, these folks are having a conversation with themselves, like that they're converting with the other users conversating with the other users in the room, and it's just great to see. We're starting the conversation, you guys are continuing it, and I just have such an appreciation for those of you who make us part of your day each and every day. In order to survive and then thrive in this media landscape, you can't just be a radio host anymore. You can't do that. You gotta have on-demand content that your audience can digest at their own time. You need to have your shows accessible on their time. You need to deliver content as often as possible through as many mediums as possible. And you should see how feverishly Diesel works during the show to make sure we're doing all of the above. He's literally got his head on the swivel. It's like he's a mad scientist back here. He's got 8 different screens up, and he's posting this, and he's getting this sound effect ready, and podcasting that, right? And reading comments here and there. So I realize that the vast majority of those of you guys who do listen and do tune in never call and never comment. I had a phone call with one of those people yesterday, Daryl, who I met at a recent Ingles show, and he's like, Mark, I don't think you guys, you and Diesel, realize just the impact you've had here. And he texts me now, and we had a great chat the other day, and he's not a guy who calls the show or texts, but he's there, and he's listening, and he's supportive, and you guys are there, and you're listening and supportive, and just truly want you guys to know how much I appreciate that. Do not forget, show number 1,000 offside episodes, 4,000 hours on the air, folks, is next Wednesday, 6 days from now. Ingles Markets in Spartanburg, 8004 Warren H. Abernathy Highway. We're going to be giving away Fan Upstate shirts. We are going to be giving away Fan Upstate hats. We're going to be giving away Ingles gift cards. If you haven't made it out to a live show yet, what better way to do it? Can we count on you to make it out to the 1,000th show, 8004 Warren H. Abernathy Highway in Spartanburg? All right, my friends, it is time for us to do that jam. It is the jam known as the Upstate's favorite athlete bracket. And I am pleased to announce that I was worried about something. I was worried that I said this yesterday. You have a right to do it, but I was worried that Gamecock fans would take over and that a guy, DJ Swearinger, who wasn't one half of the athlete that Jim Rice was, would win because of the popularity of Gamecock fans, right? That doesn't mean we don't count the results. Of course we count the results. But I thought, man, if it's really about, if this thing is really legitimate, shouldn't Jim Rice, a Hall of Famer, beat DJ Swearinger? Played for the Gamecocks, great high school player, solid NFL career, but not a Pro Bowler. No, he shouldn't. And so I'm proud to announce to you guys that Jim Rice has, in fact, moved on, and Jim Rice has, in fact, proven victorious. Now it is time, my friends, for today's matchup. And what a matchup we have for you. All right. This is one that is going to go down in the record books. And it's got kind of a similar vibe to it from the one yesterday. But again, there is a beef about one of the contestants. And we'll tackle that right now. Our matchup today, out of the Hall of Fame region, when I finish announcing the matchup, the voting opens. All right. Out of the Hall of Fame region, 4-seed Pistol Pete Maravich against 5-seed Sidney Rice. You may begin voting in the Upstate's favorite athlete bracket right now. 71307 on the text line. Just start your text with the word fan. Send us your vote. Now, let's get into the particulars and the controversy. Okay? First up, the 5-seed Sidney Rice. Born September 1st, 1986. He's 36 years of age. He played in the NFL for 8 seasons. Had 4 years, 7, 8, 9, 10, 7 seasons, I'm sorry. 4 years with the Minnesota Vikings, 3 years with the Seattle Seahawks. 7-year NFL career. He was a second-round pick, 44th overall in the 2007 NFL Draft. He was the big wide receiver who was dominant on the college level. And I got to admit this to you guys, I still don't know why I was wrong on him. I thought he was going to be great in the NFL, and he wasn't. He wasn't. Sidney Rice had one great year. That was in 2009 with the Minnesota Vikings. He had 83 catches for 1,300 yards and 8 touchdowns. He did have 30 touchdowns in his career, but that was the only year that he sniffed 1,000 yards in his 7-year career. He did make up the Pro Bowl in that year, 2009. So the difference between he and DJ Swearinger is a Pro Bowl appearance. Sidney Rice went to Gaffney High School, went to South Carolina, and like DJ Swearinger, was a somewhat solid pro, but I think a wee bit disappointing. His second highest receiving total in his career was 748 yards and 7 touchdowns in 2012. Ended his career, 243 catches, 3,592 yards. He is up against Pistol Pete Maravich. You do not need me to tell you what Pistol Pete Maravich did. In college, Diesel, he averaged, wait for it, 44 points a game.
Oh
in
my.
college at LSU, he averaged 44 points a game. In the NFL, in the NBA, he averaged 24.2 points per game. Had a high of 31 points a game in 1976 and 1977. He is in the Basketball Hall of Fame. He is in the College Basketball Hall of Fame. He was a 5-time NBA All-Star. Here is the dispute on Pistol Pete Maravich. All right? He was not born in the upstate. He was born in Aliquippa, Pennsylvania. He did not play college in the upstate. He played college at LSU. He played high school basketball in the upstate for a period of time which met the criteria for him being included in the bracket. Either you're born here, you're from here, you played high school sports here, but he didn't even play high school basketball in the upstate for 4 years. He had 2 years at Daniel High School, all right, and then played in Raleigh, North Carolina at the Needham B. Broughton School. And according to some, that is a strike against him because he wasn't born here, didn't grow up here, played a couple years of high school basketball here. They list Sports Illustrated's vault lists Pete Maravich as the 3rd best athlete all time from the state of South Carolina. It says he's from Clemson, averaged an NCAA record 44.2 points per game over 4 seasons at Louisiana State and 24.2 points per game in 10 years in the NBA. So, Diesel, your feeling on the gripe against Pete Maravich? Only played high school basketball for 2 years here.
How long does it take for you to live somewhere, to be from there, to have what is a significant amount of time? We said that they had to have played high school ball here or to have been born here. Well, he wasn't born here, but he played high school ball here. Some people, Spur Daddy even says here in the YouTube comments, I'm not voting for Pistol Pete because he's not an upstate guy. Hey, if you want to hold that against him, that is absolutely your right. But I think he spent enough time here. He spent formative years here playing high school ball. People here have memories of watching Pistol Pete in high school here. I think he counts.
I'm going to say he counts as well. And that's why we put him in. We put him a 4 seed because of the controversy. If it was based on ability, if Pistol Pete Diesel played all 4 years at Daniel and then went to Clemson, he's a
100%.
He's a number 1 seed.
Sure.
He's a number 1 seed in the bracket. But you're seeding based on kind of a predictive measure. How is he going to fare in the bracket? All right. So, guys, it is time for your votes. 71307. Please do me a solid. If you are hearing this right now, please text us your votes. 71307. Okay. That's how it works. You open your phone, you go to the text screen. When it asks who are you texting to, you put in 71307. Then you have the first word of your text be the word fan. Okay, so that's our station. So you're texting to 71307. The first word is fan, and then just give us your votes. Either you're voting for Pistol Pete Maravich or Sidney Rice. What is your vote, my friends? All right, Texter says, let's see here. Pistol Pete gets a vote. Sidney Rice gets a vote. Texter says he's an upstater. Pistol Pete isn't. I do love Pistol Pete, though. Texter says, Dr. Tom chimes in. He goes, I'm voting for Pistol Pete. Dave Tyner says, I don't care that he only played 2 years here. Pistol Pete gets my vote. Texter says Sidney Rice. Texter says Sidney Rice. Texter says Sidney Rice. And then another texter says Pistol Pete.
I think we got a fight on our hands.
Followed by Sidney Rice. Followed by Pistol Pete Maravich. For sure. Thank you, guys. Boy, I asked for you, if you are hearing this right now, to send in your vote. And you guys are, which I truly, truly, truly do appreciate. This is going to be a doozy, Diesel. It's going to be a doozy.
It's 50-50 on Facebook now. It's 72-27 percentage-wise on Twitter, leaning Pistol Pete Maravich.
There you go. We will soon see what you guys have to say. Voting on this one, my friends, is going to go up until tomorrow at 3 p.m. All right? So get your family members, get your relatives to vote. All right? Have them text in their votes to 71307. Start your text with the word fan, and away you go on the show. It is Pistol Pete Maravich, who played for 2 years at Daniel High School, against Gamecock great, Gaffney great, one-time Pro Bowler in the NFL, Sidney Rice. What say you about that? All right, my friends, I will tell you who I think wins the NASCAR championship this year when we come back right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. So who is going to win the 2023 NASCAR Cup Series title? My vote goes to Kyle Larson. You know, we were talking to Mr. Baticki last week, and I said, who are the best drivers on the circuit? He's like, both of their names are Kyle. And I was looking at the odds here because William Byron is in the lead right now in points. He's got 512. Kyle Busch, 496. Kyle Larson is down at fourth with 440. And we've talked about how I'm not a fan of the way they determine the playoffs. You win a race, you're in the playoffs. But what's happening here is you got multiple drivers, even though they don't need to win all these races after they've won one, that are winning them anyway. Will Byron, 3 wins. Kyle Busch, 3 wins. Martin Truex, Kyle Larson, Ryan Blaney, all multiple wins on the circuit. And so when it comes down to it, when you're already in, I'm going to go with a driver that I think is the best right now in the sport. I'm going to go Kyle Larson for the win. He is right now plus 550 to win the 2023 NASCAR Cup Series Championship. We've got the top 5 at 5 coming your way next, right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ron, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. What's good, everybody? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 p.m. Cannot thank you guys enough. All the choices out there, the fact that you guys continue to choose us means we're doing something right, means we're giving you guys great content, means we're creating the type of community we want here at the Fan Upstate. We thank you so much for that. Look, the Denver Nuggets had their parade today. We are coming up on the close of the NASCAR season. And I'll tell you guys something, man. This, to me, this time of year is where you really make your money as a host, where you really earn your money. You know, in football season, and I'll never forget this, when we had the pandemic in 2020, and between March 12th and July 26th, we had no sports, right? No sports. It was the hardest challenge of our lives to get on the air for 4 hours every day and, you know, try to get your mind off of what was going on in society, try to continue to have a community that we can connect with each and every day and be there for one another, right? And we had some of the best ratings we've ever had during that time.
I'd like to thank our mayonnaise conversation for that.
Oh, yeah.
Really lights the people up.
Yeah. So we had some of our best ratings, and our competition went in the toilet then. And it was because, like, they've got a bunch of dudes who break down games. And, like, what are they going to do when you can't break down games? We actually have, like, we have on-air talents here. Talents, plural. On-air talents that know how to entertain an audience. You know, like if you take away our fastball, we still have the slider, we still have the curve, we still have the knuckleball. And so we obliterated our competition when they had no games to break down. And so for me, this time in a regular year, middle of June until August 1st, that 6 week period of time is a challenging time because all of the bread and butter of your audience's favorite sports are done. There's no secondary sports. NBA and hockey are done. You've got regular season baseball, which goes on for forever and a day. You got the College Baseball World Series with no local teams. And I'm just realizing right now that it can be a little bit different for me this year because I am getting into perusing and watching NASCAR. I'm checking it out, man. I'm watching it. And I'm curious if this is something, if NASCAR is your pastime until football season gets here. You know, this to me, it's always mid-June until August 1st, that 6 weeks period of time. And I like the period of time. Like, I like it a lot because I like, as an artist, having a blank canvas. As a content creator, I love the freedom of having a blank canvas. A lot of hosts don't, right? This is a good time for me. But it's going to be less of, it's going to be less of a blank canvas for me because I'm really going to give NASCAR a shot over the next 6 weeks. What do you say? We get to the top 5 at 5, the top 5 biggest sports stories of the day, the top 5 topics we're discussing. Ladies and gentlemen of the Upstates, Offsiders, the top 5 at 5 starts right now.
And now, the top 5 at 5.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hit it.
5.
All right, at number 5. How about the Atlanta Braves? They just keep winning. They just keep chugging along. They have not had a dip thus far this year. Eddie Rosario last night in a tight game did this in the top of the 6th inning.
That's smoked. Out to right. Out of here. Eddie Rosario with a low liner, a missile right out there at the yellow line on the top of the wall. And it's his 9th home run of the season. And the Braves retake the lead.
Braves are in a really advantageous place, man, because no one's listing them as the favorite, even in their own league. They like the Padres or the Dodgers. In the AL, they like the Rangers or the Rays. They love those guys. They love those teams. So the Braves are kind of, just kind of lurking beneath the surface. Spencer Strider last night again had another 6 strikeouts. The ERA is now up to 4.12, but Clemson's own continues to be one of the best strikeout artists. And if you're looking for who are the true World Series contenders, you got to have an A offense and a B pitching staff to win in today's day and age. And the Bigs and the Braves have that. 10-7 winners over the Detroit Tigers, the hapless Detroit Tigers last night. Next up.
4.
Folks, we asked you this question today. Why, oh why, has drafting quarterbacks become more inaccurate over time, not less inaccurate? I went back and I looked at every quarterback drafted in the first round by the decade since the 80s. In the 80s, 10 of the 20 first-round picks hit. There was a connection there. There was contact. They made it. 10 out of 20. In the 1990s, that number was 5 out of 18. In the 2000s, that number was 2 out of 26. And then in the 2010s, that number was 12 out of 26. In the 2010s, that number was 14 out of 33. What are you seeing here? Well, the number of quarterbacks being taken in the first round has about doubled, but you're not getting a better percentage of these that are clicking, that are hitting. All told, since 1980, the percentage of quarterbacks in the first round that have hit is at 42%. And in the 80s, it was 50%. So how is it exactly that we're getting worse at this inexact science? We're not getting better. Wouldn't you think that the quarterback coaching and the pro systems that you're playing in college now and the 26, 27, 60 rule, which Bill Parcells started, 26 on the Wonderlic or better, 27 starts in college or more, 60% completions in college, the Wonderlic, the S2 cognitive test, we still haven't found squat that helps us pick better quarterbacks.
So you're saying we still haven't found what we're looking for?
Nicely played, Diesel. Nicely played. We still have not. 42% is the number. Why is that the case? Because the answer to me is that they have yet to find a way to quantify drive, work ethic, leadership, and character. And until you do, you're still going to be selecting traits. Diesel, I sold management development training programs. One of our exercises was you had to hire your replacement. So let's do this right now, Diesel, a little impromptu, you and me, okay? You're going to hire your replacement, Diesel. Yeah. Congratulations, Diesel. You're going to move, Diesel, to San Francisco to host Afternoon Drive. But before you do,
San Francisco
doesn't want to go there.
No,
okay,
hell no.
You're going to move to Afternoon Drive, host on the planet, but you got to hire your replacement here.
Yeah.
What are you looking for?
I am looking for somebody who is smart, who is quick thinking, who is witty enough to write compelling teases, who is able to pick up the concepts and what we're doing quickly. I need somebody who doesn't get flustered, who can do a lot of different things at the same time, and somebody who can deal with you.
That's right. That's right. So, Diesel, you just listed a lot of traits that were attitude-based. A lot of attitude-based traits that were just in your list there. We haven't, and so that's what we see consistently across the board. About 80% of the traits and characteristics that people would hire in their replacement are attitude-based. The mistake companies make is they look for skills, right?
The French call that je ne sais quoi,
Yeah.
looking for the I don't know what.
And the NFL teams have still not found what, right? They're looking for skills, not attitude-based traits. Your drive, your work ethic, your character. Why did the Denver Nuggets just win the NBA title? Because of drive and work ethic and character. Until you can measure that, you're still going to be swinging and missing with these NFL quarterbacks. Next up.
3.
At number 3. You know, Diesel, I was looking at this the other day, and I'm asking you this because I don't know the answer to it. Okay? I do not know the answer to it. So, Knox White faced Joe Farmer to be Greenville mayor, right? And Knox White has won. He is re-upped. He continues as mayor of Greenville. And it says, Diesel, that the votes were as follows. This is what blows me away. 2,294 votes for Knox White. 1,229 votes for Joe Farmer. Diesel, do you not think, like, if you or I ran for mayor, don't you think we'd have a shot to get 2,000 votes? Like, am I missing something here?
Population of Greenville, South Carolina is 72,000 people. Now, this is the Greenville Metro.
Greater Greenville's 400,000.
Right. This is Greenville city population, 72,000 people. And only 3,500 people actually voted. I didn't even know there was a mayoral election happening.
Yeah.
Didn't have a clue. Never saw it reported on the news once. And we actually watch local news. We watch across most of the local news. We watch Fox Carolina. We watch YFF.
So
I didn't even know it was happening.
So all you would need to become mayor of Greenville, Diesel, is to have a big enough campaign to get 2,295 votes, and you would be the mayor of Greenville.
Wow.
What are we doing? Diesel.
Yeah, why are we doing this job?
Diesel, we can get your lazy river.
Yes.
We can get that lazy river going. Like, am I right with this, guys? Like, am I reading this correctly? Like, if you were to run for mayor, if I was to run for mayor, all I have to do is get 2,295 votes. Do I need to have lived here for a certain period of time? Like, what would make me eligible to run for mayor?
Well, what says I don't have to do that much with my term more than all I really have to do is convince 2,200 people to vote for me.
That's it. That's
no
all you
wonder
gotta do.
nothing around here is changing.
Boy, Diesel, we might be using our platform for more than just ticking off Clemson and South Carolina fans here in the new future. What am I missing here, folks? How was the winning votes only 2,200? Oh, it's the mayoral vote. It's not the Republican primary. It's the mayoral vote. Greenville's mayor's race for Greenville mayor. All right. Oh, so yes, it was the Republican vote, Diesel. That's what I'm missing.
Okay.
It was the right to be the Republican candidate for Greenville's mayor. That's what I'm missing.
Okay.
It's still a pathetic turnout.
Can anyone tell us when the actual vote is? Because again, I didn't have a clue. I didn't have a clue this was an election year.
Neither do I. Neither have I. All right. Next up.
2.
Folks, the SEC released its 2024 schedule yesterday. We realize they have yet to play 2023, and I think there's going to be some serious buyer's remorse by SEC teams for allowing Oklahoma and Texas in. This conference is now such a behemoth that really good to great teams are going to have 3 and 4 losses, maybe 5. That's point number 1. Point number 2, my Florida Gators have the most difficult schedule in 2024 in the history of the sports. And I'm not being hyperbolic here. The schedule, they have got 11 Power 5 opponents. And here they are. Miami, UCF, now in the Big 12, Florida State, Kentucky, LSU, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Georgia, Tennessee, Texas, and Mississippi State. Are you freaking kidding me? Are you kidding me with this? Not only that, folks, but South Carolina was seriously disrespected. Why? Well, there's no Georgia on the schedule. There's no Florida on the schedule. There's no Tennessee on the schedule. Again, why? They decided, the powers that be decided that those rivalries weren't big enough to keep. Shame on them that Florida LSU took precedence over South Carolina, Georgia. And so now South Carolina is effectively an SEC West school, an SEC West team. And it's weak, and it's pathetic, and it's disappointing. You know, South Carolina has so many of these teams now from the SEC West that they might as well be an SEC West team. Oklahoma, Alabama, Ole Miss, Texas A&M. I mean, really? LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama, Ole Miss, and Texas A&M. No Florida, no Georgia, no Tennessee. The SEC scheduling department did not respect you. They prioritized other rivalries over yours. And finally, it is our Upstate's favorite athlete bracket. If you are listening right now to me say this, my request is that you text in your votes. It is, my friends, out of the Hall of Fame region, the 4-seed Pistol Pete Maravich against the 5-seed Sidney Rice. Sidney Rice, Gaffney High School. Sidney Rice, South Carolina Gamecocks. Sidney Rice, Minnesota Vikings, and the Seattle Seahawks. 1 Pro Bowl appearance. Pistol Pete Maravich. The knock on him in this bracket is he just played 2 years at Daniel High School here in the Upstate. Wasn't born here. Didn't play his whole high school career here. A texter wants to know, how many years do you need to be here to be considered from here? We've actually run that before. We've run that poll. And the answer you guys told me was, I get to say I'm from the Upstate after I've been here for 10 years, a decade. But the criteria for our bracket was you needed to either be born here or from here or play high school sports here. Pete Maravich gets the check for that. He played 2 years at Daniel High School. He is on Sports Illustrated's list, the 3rd best athlete all time from the state of South Carolina. So I implore you guys, Pistol Pete Maravich or Sidney Rice, what is your vote? And those are today's top 5 at 5. Now it's your chance to chime in, which you can do at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-326-3663. The text line is there for you at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan, and away you go. You can get to us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. What's good, all my YouTube friends? At the Fan Upstate is where you can find us on all of those. And then finally, email. You guys can all email the show, Mark Ryan. That is MARC Ryan at thefanupstate.com. All the different ways you can get in touch with us here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere. Coming up next on the show, we will talk SEC schedule and more with our guy Jake Crane from Crane & Company. That is next. This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate.
Stream, as always, you guys brought the heat today. Dan B, Spur Daddy, JD, Trey Davis, Roger Carper, Ayatollah of Rock and Rolla, Stephen Webb, all you guys who got in there. This might be our most commented on show ever.
You guys are awesome,
Just
man.
you guys are going nuts in this comment section. We love it.
Thank you so much for what you're doing, man.
Keep telling your friends.
Keep it going. Tell your friends. Let's get this in there. And if you haven't subscribed yet to the YouTube channel, please do. It is very, 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 very helpful. So if you can hit that little subscribe button, what is it, Diesel? Red?
Red.
The red subscribe button on our YouTube page.
Yeah.
It would warm the cockles of my heart right here.
And,
Thank you guys so much.
And do us a big favor. Anytime you see us posting standalone video content, not the live streams, where we chop stuff out of the live streams and make videos out of it, do us a favor and watch those videos, because that will just keep exposing us to more and more and more people. You don't realize how much that helps. You just press play on the video, let it play for half or the whole video, And that really, really matters in the YouTube algorithm to help push our content out there to more and more people. So, guys, it's been great. Those of you who are here, keep commenting, keep sending us your texts, 71307, starting with the keyword fan. And we will be back on the live stream tomorrow at 3 o'clock.